Welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And our guest this morning, we'll be talking a little bit later on to Bobby Jo Burdick from Armed Women of America. I look forward to hearing from her. In full disclosure, it was pre-taped, but we're going to have a lot of fun. She was on the program back in the early days. I'm going to say maybe we started March, maybe it was April, May, somewhere around there. So we're going to get it caught up with Bobby Jo here in just a little bit. We got our first virtual wave. Thank you. Merry Christmas, everyone. And you'll hear me say that throughout the morning. I might sound like a broken record on this because I believe many of you, the viewers, are very politically astute. That you do make it a point to go out and vote. If you're not in the area, absentee, etc. So I may be preaching to the choir a little bit here about the importance to vote. But listen to this, and that's, again, why I kept highlighting the fact that the Corning Painted Post the capital projects plan was voted on December 19th, not what you'd call a day for huge voter turnout. Well, in Binghamton, right down the road, Binghamton's 6th District City Council race has officially ended in a tie after a manual recount. A tie. So to all those people that say my vote doesn't matter, and I know most of the time when people say that, they are focused on the presidential or maybe a congressional even, or a senatorial, gubernatorial. But think about that. It was a tie. Incumbent Philip Strawn, a Republican, and Democrat Rebecca Rothmel were vying for the spot. It was Binghamton's South Side. After an exact tie, the issue went to local government leaders to decide the next step, and they released that yesterday. So this is what actually happened. They both, after the recount, they both got 550 votes each. What's the chances, right? Well, according to the second-class cities law, that's a weird way of putting that. That's what it's called, the second-class cities. Oof. In the case of a failure to elect, it becomes the mayor's responsibility to appoint someone to fill the position. Now, it is just an interim position. The voters will have another chance, but not until a special election is held next November during the presidential race. I'm sure they'll get a lot more than 550 each at that point, or whoever else decides to run. Think about that, an exact tie. Wow. So again, your vote does matter. I cannot stress that enough. Now, yesterday on the program, we had former Congressman Joe Sempolinski. We cover so much when Joe's on the program that we sometimes don't spend as much on certain issues or highlight certain issues perhaps as much as we should. So I wanted to reiterate something that he had said, or maybe give you a little more detail. New York loses more than 101,000 residents, topping the nation in decline. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is the third consecutive year that we have topped that list. We're always towards the top, if not the top, for the lists that we don't want to be on. We're always towards the bottom for also the lists we don't want to be on. New York's population exodus continued to top national charts for a third consecutive year with a loss of more than 101,000 residents from the Empire State. That's according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The 0.5% decline, here's how they find silver lining. The 0.5% decline in population, which occurred during a one-year period ending July 1st, was less than the previous year's 0.9% decline. Of course, people are going to Texas, Florida, and elsewhere. There was quite a few pieces. I don't have them in front of me because it was kind of yesterday's news, if you will, but I mentioned it during our interview with Joe from the New York Post, essentially highlighting that, when Democrats have full control of Albany, and you have some of these programs that we've seen come out, one that we highlight so often on this program, bail reform, right? Bail reform, which has made it less safe. People are already looking at our high taxes, and they go, wait, now I can't even feel safe in my neighborhoods because of bail reform and the like. There's so many to name now with all their clever names. So it really gets to a point where they're, and you've heard this saying used a lot, voting with their feet. So I did want to highlight that as Joe touched on it quickly as we were covering a lot of issues yesterday. U.S. Representative Elise Stefanik, who represents the North Country and parts of Capital Region, blamed the decline on, quote, the consequences of far-left Democrat leadership. She said lawmakers in Albany have an extremist agenda. I do believe we see that quite frequently. Excuse me. Like what we talked about yesterday with Joe with this reparations committee. All that does is to serve to divide us as a state, where if it emulates California, there'll be no winner in the end. How's that? Continue with Stefanik. Far left Kathy Hochul and Albany Democrats have made New York so unlivable that our state leads the nation in population loss, with more than 102,000 residents leaving in 1 year alone. With record crime, there you go, and cost of living far beyond the national average, New York's mass exodus is far from over. And I would tend to agree. I know we've said it numerous times on this program, but how many people do you know that have that 5-year plan? That, no, maybe you're not ready to move out today, but you're starting to make plans for about 5 years. Or you do know people that said enough is enough. They throw their hands up and say, where are we moving to? So those are a couple quick updates. Again, Bobby Joe Burdick is going to be our guest here in just a little bit. We need to take our first break. I'm running a little late, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thank you again for joining us. I know this time of year you have plenty of options of things you can do, so I appreciate you spending your morning with us. I would also remind you that on Monday, whether it be that you're a procrastinator and you decided to start wrapping presents on Christmas morning, or whether you're opening presents, we are going to have a Frankly Speaking with all the music from the Salvation Army Telethon. So you can put that on in the background and enjoy the sweet sounds of Christmas music as you open presents, get ready for prep for dinner. Okay, wanted to quickly mention, because we were on New York State issues, we are going to talk about former President Trump. We have a few things here about Biden as well. And we have, if we have an opportunity, some college updates with the anti-Semitism that we're seeing on college campuses. First, I received this. We talk about energy so much on this program, and I know we have a few viewers that said, you're going to have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano on, right? We actually talked the day of the telethon when he stopped in. We are set to go. I will get you an exact date. We wanted to wait until after the holidays, obviously, as people get back into the swing of things and back into the rhythm of watching more news-based programs. So we are going to have that special energy edition of Frankly Speaking. But Congressman Nick Langworthy released this yesterday. On Thursday, the congressman led a letter to Governor Hochul in response to the report issued by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, analyzing the issues related to the widespread outages during Winter Storm Elliott and recommendations to protect energy access during future winter storms. We've talked about it with the push for electric, what that'll mean for us in the future when we lose grid, and especially in rural areas where it does get very cold. And we've said numerous times and it's not hyperbole, that it will lead, unfortunately, to death. Well, this is what the letter reads. There's just a small part of it. We strongly urge you to consider the report's recommendations to protect natural gas infrastructure, including wellheads, from extreme cold weather. After production was affected during the winter storm, threatening the safety of millions of New Yorkers. The report, produced by FERC and NERC, confirmed that we feared about the reliability of our state's bulk power system operations, the grid, and its endurance during an extreme weather event. The letter continued, despite the report's conclusion that natural gas remains a critical source of heating and power generation for New Yorkers. The policies carried out by your office and by the New York State Assembly appear to reject these realities. Yes, they almost want to ignore that natural gas is still used. And, when they were talking about these new laws of converting everything over to electric, just to show you how reliable the two are, hospitals were still allowed to use natural gas, which I think speaks volumes. Now, Congressman Langworthy was joined on the letter by House Republican Conference Chair Elise Stefanik, who we mentioned earlier, and Representatives Anthony D'Esposito, Mike Lawler, Nicole Malatakis, Mark Molinaro, Claudia Tenney, and Brandon Williams. Okay, so that's a quick update. We have taken a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking. Oh, by the way, don't forget, you can always contact me on this program during the show, after the show. I'd love to hear from you if you want to weigh in on the issues of the day. When we come back, as a matter of fact, I didn't realize the time already, we are going to be talking with Bobby Jo Burdick from Armed Women of America, Steuben County. That's coming up when we come back, so stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. And joining me again, Bobby Jo. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Think of how much has changed since the last time you were on and how much Armed Women of America, the Steuben County chapter, has grown. And I also, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but the attention that you've received in the media positively, and it's been really fun for me to watch. Yeah. It seems like a lifetime ago. It really wasn't that long ago, though, right?
Right.
So tell us, for those that aren't familiar with our first time together, tell us about Armed Women of America.
So it was started approximately 2013, and then became kind of a chaptered out organization. We are a national nonprofit organization, chapters all across the United States. It's women training women to be the better self-protectors, or to be their own self-protectors.
Okay.
And having the knowledge and skills to be able to do that safely.
What drew you to it specifically?
It's funny. Sitting in the back of a scope meeting, and Doug Mitchell, he's amazing, had mentioned, hey, there's this group called the Well-Armed Women, so I just happened to be looking it up. Yeah. And I said, it's not the Well-Armed Women at the end. Hey, it's called this. He said, run with it. Yeah. And I did, and I am so glad I did. It's amazing.
And when did you say that was?
So this was in probably early summer of 2022. So then probably
like a year now.
We just started our we just got our 1-year anniversary, September of 23.
Wow, there's a lot of organizations that would want the coverage and attention that you guys received. Congratulations, that's amazing.
Thanks.
And we should mention that this is a non-political organization.
It is.
Because that's important for you guys, just like with Scope, to say that we're doing this for self-defense. We're doing this for our Second Amendment rights, but it's not about R or D next to your name.
No, it is absolutely not. And we don't talk about that with any meetings. It's not about that whatsoever. We don't want people coming in and worrying that they're going to be offended or anything like that. Right. We don't want feelings hurt, for sure. We are just women training women to be their own self-protectors. And we are very much, though, pro our Second Amendment rights, for sure.
Now, let's talk about, and I want to talk about the training specifically in just a moment, but you mentioned 1 year, which is hard to believe. How has membership been? I know getting off the ground is kind of the tough part a lot of times for organizations.
Right. So in the very beginning, before I was officially had all my credentialing that I needed, I was helping to teach the girls to shoot with dart guns.
Okay.
And so Thanksgiving time,
talk about a change.
Yeah. So Thanksgiving time, we had cups set up, and at the end of the range, and whoever got the most down or the most points, I donated a turkey, and they won a turkey for Thanksgiving. Wow. So now that has gone from probably 5, then to 11. We are now at about 22, I think, or 24 members.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, in 1 year. That's pretty good.
And if someone's thinking of joining or really want to find out more, what is a typical, you mentioned training, what's a typical meeting like?
So we try to get in at least an hour of classroom time where I'm going to bring in things to talk about. Girls, and I say my ladies, I love to hear from them. I want to know what they want to learn about. And just recently I gave them a test on specific parts of a handgun. So they had to know, what is that magazine? Is that a magazine? Is that the safety? Is that, all of that stuff.
It's important.
And then at the end we went over that and discussed why their answers were what they did. And so just those little things, we do that. And then at the end of classroom time, we go down to the range and shoot. Over this last summer, though, we were outside, and so I also shoot Glock competition. I've started doing that now. Wow. Not that I'm good at it, but it just to shoot. But the girls and I were outside, and I was able to put up different stages for them. So they start at one stage, shoot a certain thing, and then as they're walking to the next stage, while safely holding that firearm, they're doing what we call an emergency magazine change, dropping that magazine to the ground, putting in the second magazine, and reshooting. Yeah. So it's different trainings. It depends on the day, and it depends on the weather, of course.
And that depends, too, on you, because you have to get your proper accreditation. Is that the right word? The proper training to train others.
It is, yep. So I have, NRA certified for pistol.
Okay.
And I'm also certified by the NRA for rifle and shotgun as an instructor. I'm also a certified range safety officer. But that's not all, because I had, before I could even start, AWA, or Armed Women of America, had me do even more training with them.
You know, because you just got back recently from Missouri, right?
I did.
Or Missouri, as some people say.
Yeah.
Missouri.
That was fun.
Yeah. So, so this is keeping you pretty busy. Is this what you expected when you first started?
No. not in the least. But it's been. I can't tell you the journey, and it's been great.
Yeah. One thing, and we're going to go through some pictures here in just a moment, but what I like is you're having great meetings, you're teaching so much at these meetings, but also there's the, I guess for lack of a better word, the charitable side of it, and what you're doing outside of those meetings, because it's not just, we have our meeting, we have the training, we have some fun, but you're thinking of ways to better help the community, which is something I talk about in this program a lot. Now, this wasn't charitable, but of course we kept bragging up the Christmas trees that you gave everybody. We're going to show those pictures in just a moment, but because I don't have any pictures of this, I thought maybe you could talk about your participation with Reese Across America, an amazing organization.
It is.
You did that just recently. What was that, last week?
I think this past Saturday.
Yeah, I know it was.
Morning.
Yeah. This time of year blends together, as you can imagine. How did it go?
So we had several of our girls. We all kind of met up there and got together, and just all took our turn taking wreaths and putting them on the graves of the soldiers that we've lost. And to us, I know it's very important to me myself. My family has deep roots in the military. My mom, my grandfather, and they're both gone. But also one of the ladies in my group, her son is also currently serving overseas.
Oh, wow.
So military is huge, but it's a great organization. It's a great thing to do.
And it's so touching when you see that. Two steps, when you see people volunteering their time to put those wreaths, but also after the fact, when you see those pictures of what that looks like, it's I mean, it's difficult, but it's also important for people to remember.
Very important.
Of course. And you also, I've got to mention this. So Christmas time, there's a lot of needs, especially this year. Tell us about your initiative to feed families.
So I saw this little calendar type thing somewhere, I'm not sure where online, but it's basically, so the first day of December you put in one item of food, then the second day, all the way through the 24th, you put in, so there's 24 different items. So I kind of gathered the ladies and said, hey, would you guys want to do this? And we each make our own basket and see how many families we can feed.
Yeah.
And at the end, we also now have, thanks to also Scope, we're able to throw in a ham to each of those families.
Wow.
So we're actually Catholic Charities Turning Point in Bath is also helping us with coming up with some extra names for families that we can just donate this food to and just say Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
That's it. Simple.
Wow, that's great.
It'll be donated actually in a laundry basket.
Oh,
So,
bonus. You get a laundry basket.
Yep.
Isn't that nice? So I promise this. Let's go through, because we're nearly out of time. This is going fast. All right, I'm going to try this. It's a little difficult sometimes, but we're going to put up on the screen.
Oh, boy.
Oh, wrong one. Hold on. Give me just a second. Hold on. We're going to put you back on. I know I have it here somewhere, but I try to do it on the fly. So stay with me. What we're going to do is look at some of the pictures not throughout the year. Really, you've had a busy couple of months is really what it seems like, doesn't it?
It is.
Well, probably it definitely seems that way to you.
It's
but
been busy.
you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a short break so that I can load this up properly, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. We're talking about Armed Women of America. And as I promised, I finally got to figure it out. As I promised, we're going to look at some photos together. Okay, can you see the... Okay, who's that?
Oh, goodness. That's us. So we had a float, and my girls, my ladies, I should say, are amazing at putting this float together. We used my husband's rickety old trailer and made it look really good. So
and I'm going to have a few more pictures of that, but I thought that was a really great picture.
We have there at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of the girls.
Yeah.
And we did it, our theme kind of wanted to be Christmas in New York. And we had the Lady Liberty there, and we had presents wrapped at her feet with her boxes with rocks in so they didn't blow away, but lots of purple lights.
And that was at the Corning Parade of Lights, right?
Corning and Watkins.
And Watkins. We're going to get to that in a moment.
Yes.
It may be difficult to tell between someone, but I thought That one there to me looks like it could be Watkins, but I can't really tell.
I can't
You would
tell
know
either.
better.
Yeah,
But I like the back honoring the military. I think
Yeah.
I have another photo of that, but you've got
Yep.
the Second Amendment flag.
We do.
And-
Yep. And then the front, we had big balloons that said "Armed Women of America" spelled it out.
Yeah, that, and I may have another picture of that. Oh well, I've got the wrong angle, but
That's
I just
okay.
kept showing some of the various pictures, and I like it. So there, I think that looks
Yeah,
really
yeah.
nice.
Yes, that's a great picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were very proud of that.
And then now that's definitely Marcus Street. That might,
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yep.
right down the. I can recognize it, but that I thought that was great. And you had mentioned Watkins. I hope I have one here that's Watkins. Oh, we'll get to the trees in a moment. But I was hoping I'd have one Watkins because I saw you got a ton of news coverage. It's like this only. I'm not going to name the name because they're competition, but it was like the only float they showed.
I was very surprised to see that,
Yes.
but very grateful too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
I agree.
We're just trying to get our name out there in a positive way.
Especially with the hard work you're doing, and that's I've shown mine on camera, but those are the photos, and I think they're back to back here. There's the sheriff. Now the
Sheriff
sheriff
Allen.
was on just the other day, and we started to talk. I said, "You see my tree? I got one too." We were bragging to each other, so that's a great photo. And
The
not
first
sure.
one was Sean Cobb.
Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
From
Yep.
Painted Post.
Yep. So there you go. Those are the pictures I want to pop up. But yes, it's great to see that you're getting that media coverage.
And we had I don't want to say, people were just so supportive.
Mhm.
I was surprised. We were nervous,
Of course.
but the support, the people were just cheering and screaming. And what you don't see in the pictures is we also had a big radio playing Lee Greenwood's God Bless You.
And I heard that because that's what was interesting. I think that might have been what caught my attention when I saw it. And I go, that's interesting. You had a whole bunch of stuff going for it, and I was very excited to see that. But we're nearly out of time. And thank you for the tree again, by the way. I know I
Yes.
told you personally, but I love it. And it made our telethon look great with all this Christmas festivity and Winter Wonderland type. I've gotten some criticism, if I'm being honest, about the tree. But everything else everybody likes. Not your tree, my Charlie Brown
Sure.
tree. So who is the Armed Women of America for? If someone's watching this and they say, can I help? Can I volunteer? Can I be a part of it? Who are you looking for?
So, basically, any woman in New York State over the age of 21 who's able to have a pistol permit, who's able to legally have a pistol permit.
Sure.
And that can vary from younger women who've not had any experience to even more mature women who haven't had to pick their firearm up in 40 years.
Right.
They're still new beginners, but we can work with anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, where should people go to find out more?
So you can go to our national website, armedwomenofamerica.org, I think it is.
Armedwomen.org.
Armedwomen.org. Oh, I should probably learn that.
There's so many.
yeah.
I know it. Armedwomen.org.
Armedwomen.org. And you can, by all means, every the first meeting is always free. So come check us out. Come sit in, see if you like what you like. Like what you see. And
Yeah.
and we have the camaraderie is amazing. So we have a great bunch of ladies, and we encourage you. Please come.
Well, I can't wait to see what the new year brings you and how it continues to grow, because you've got to feel proud at the end of the day that this has only been a year, a little over a year. It's unbelievable.
Very much.
Well, let's have you on again soon, okay?
Perfect.
All right, we'll be
Appreciate
right
it.
back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. And just to give you a peek behind the curtain about media. So media, I would say 101 is when you have a guest on the program to always, as the saying goes, let them sell the soap, meaning make sure they can have an opportunity to promote themselves or their organization, their book, their campaign, whatever the case may be. And that is literally probably step one in media. And what do you think? After 20 years in media, I forgot to do, I forgot to ask Bobby Joe Burdick about their meetings, when their meetings were. Well, luckily I have that information for you now. Unbelievable on my part. The local chapter of Armed Women of America meets the third Thursday of every month from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Painted Post Field and Stream, which is located at 320 Beartown Road in Painted Post. Also, I will mention that Bobby Joe's email is awa.steubencountyny@gmail.com. So if you miss that, just go ahead. You see the number on the bottom of the screen. Contact me. I will get you in touch with Bobby Joe Burdick. And as an update, I mentioned, I was in full disclosure, I mentioned it was a pre-recorded interview. So she was kind enough to send me this. This is from their Christmas party just last night. And if you recall during the interview, she mentioned the baskets that they were making to give away. Well, she'd like to thank the generous donations of the ladies in the local AWA, donations from members of Steuben County Scope, and Top Supermarket in Watkins Glen, who did so much for this cause. They put together 8 large food baskets, all containing the same items, including a Christmas ham. Also thankful to the Catholic Charities for their help and Turning Point in Bath to find families in need. So as she says here, it's not just our Second Amendment that we so strongly believe in, but also helping others in need and being able to support our community. So great organization. Thank you again to Bobby Joe, and a great picture there. I'm glad you had a good Christmas party. Okay, let's get back to it. If you've watched this program for any extended period of time, I think you'll find this to be a funny headline. It's from Bloomberg. Calling Trump a threat to democracy is central to Biden's campaign. Well, the heck you say, Bloomberg. They're just making this announcement at Bloomberg on December the 22nd? I think we started back in March, and it was known well before then, and that's when the show started. President Biden's campaign will frame the 2024 election as a repeat of the 2020 contest, but with even bigger stakes. His campaign manager said in a memo that outlines its strategy in a likely rematch against Trump, quote, "We are treating this election like it will determine the fate of American democracy, because it will." The threat Donald Trump posed in 2020 to American democracy has only grown more dire since then. Interesting. He is running a campaign on revenge and retribution, and at the expense of Americans' freedom. Now, the memo doesn't outline any significant shift in messaging or strategy, but rather served as a broad retort to criticism of Biden's age, and handling of the economy. So how is that a retort? Out of curiosity, not criticism, just taking a look at this. So Democrats and Republicans, voters of all ages, have an issue with Biden's age. Biden, according to, was it Axios, having trouble admitting his age. Doesn't like to talk about it, but the voters do. And the voters are concerned about his mental health, his physical health, just his age in general, as if he were to win re-election, he would stand to be 86 at the end of that term. So in response to that really, I think, justified concern of a sitting president and the economy, as we all struggle with our groceries, especially this time of year with presents and the big feasts, struggling, their retort is Trump is bad and Trump is a threat to democracy. And this comes off the heels of when those Colorado judges appointed by a Democrat governor, different governors, but all Democrat governors, decided that they get to decide, they take it upon themselves who you and I, well, in this case, more so the Colorado voters, but really it's larger picture overall of who you could vote for President of the United States. And that's why I was so grateful to have former Congressman Joe Sempolinski on yesterday, because I thought we tried to shine some more light on that. And I think we did a good job, or he did a good job, and I appreciate that. So there's an article that kind of piggybacks off of what I'm saying here. Let me look at my time, because this one might take a little bit. It's from Isaac Shore. And I want to just give you a little background information. It's from the New York Post. Here is the piece if you want to look it up for yourself. Go back over here and find the exact, there we go. So there's the piece. Colorado court's weak case only strengthens Donald Trump's chances in 2024 run. Now, whether you're a Trump fan, you're not a Trump fan, sit back, relax. I will say that Isaac Shore is not a Trump fan, and you'll see that in just a moment. When I start this article. I do want to take a break, though, because I know this is going to take a little bit longer, and I don't want to run too far over. Couple quick announcements. Don't forget, we will have a Christmas Day. Frankly speaking, Christmas Day falls on a Monday. Obviously, I hope I'm not spoiling Christmas, but it will not be live. But we did the next best thing, actually better, arguably, which is to grab all that great music from the Salvation Army Telethon last Friday. The local musicians like Doc Possum, Crystal Chords, etc., put them all into 1 hour broadcast. So you can put us on in the background and open your presents, have your eggnog, whatever your traditions are. Another announcement I've been putting off accidentally, but I think a lot of you will be excited about this. On Monday, January 1st, so a week from Christmas, New Year's Day, there's going to be a very special broadcast here on Fox, which is MASH, the comedy that changed television. It's a 2-hour celebration of television's most influential sitcom. There's going to be rarely seen interviews with some of the members that have passed. They're going to have new interviews with those that are still with us. It's premiering Monday, January 1st, 8 to 10 p.m. on Fox. I'll tell you more about it as it gets closer. I just thought you may want to mark your calendar because I'm sure we have some big MASH fans. You may watch it on MeTV. I know I catch MASH almost every night, so I'm looking forward to that, even if it is past my bedtime. Let's take a short break. When we come back, Colorado courts weak case only strengthens Donald Trump's chance in 2024 run. I'd love to hear your take on it. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Stay with us. Thank you so much for joining us here on Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. If you're off from school or from work, thanks for joining us. Thank you for spending the morning with us. We talked about the mass exodus from New York, third consecutive year that we led the country and people leaving our state. You can point to many obvious reasons for that. Received a comment from a viewer as a former resident of New York and retired individual. During COVID, I felt much safer and calmer being in a Republican state under a common sense rule. Thank you for that comment. Keep them coming in. You see the number on the bottom of the screen. You can text or leave a voicemail. So back to the piece that I've been mentioning that I want to highlight, Isaac Shore. So again, Isaac Shore is not a big fan of Trump, which you'll see in a moment. But his point is interesting. He said, "You idiots. You're so sure that you were put on this earth to save the country from Donald Trump that you're willing to gamble it all to have that chance. And you're going to lose. The Colorado Supreme Court's decision to try to kick Trump off the ballot was the decadent, irresponsible, inevitable, and logical conclusion to the long-standing practices of the resistance, which for 6 years has been the former president's greatest asset, the people resisting him." This is very similar to the point I made. Now, this is coming from someone that does not want to see Trump win. And I had mentioned on the program on Tuesday, I believe, when that decision came down, or I guess Wednesday, if I hated Trump, if I hated him, I would be so mad at this Colorado court because it just is another feather in the cap of Trump, who's been talking about this, the deep state or the swamp, or whatever you want to call it, being against him from day one. I don't know, it just blows my mind. But anyway, Trump couldn't just be a vain, self-serving charlatan, willing to seize upon every advantage available to him. He had to be a Russian asset since the 80s and had being blackmailed with a secret video ready to drop at any moment. You know, and he goes through this all the times where it can't just be what's at face value in Isaac Shore's mind. It has to be something worse. They're kind of out-kicking their coverage, so to speak. There was no time to investigate the role, or hold on. You could never admit that, despite the divisive, overheated rhetoric, Trump was smart to address the crisis at America's southern border. Instead, his successor quickly shelved the effective policy that were implemented under Trump, deepening the crisis. There was no time to investigate the role the Chinese Communist Party played in starting the COVID-19 pandemic because Trump had uttered the words China virus. What were the cable news splits on coverage of the substantive issues at the border versus Trump's comments about it? Yeah, what did they actually? It's about what Trump said, not about the actual issues. This has actually always helped Trump, Shore's argument has been, but never so much as during the 2024 election cycle. It seems long ago now, but Trump was no lock to reprise his role as a standard bearer. And that was as recently as, March of last year, or this year, excuse me. Voters seemed to maybe want to go DeSantis, or, they were testing the waters. But then Alvin Bragg, Manhattan District Attorney, dropped a flimsy criminal indictment against Trump in the spring that just about everyone intuitively understood would not have been enough to bring anything against the defendant. Or against any other defendant, would not have been brought against any other defendant. Within a month, Trump's lead had doubled. And that, so he's basically saying they're overplaying their hand again and again. And this is from someone that does not want to see Trump win. The more substantive indictments that followed had the same effect, despite the fact that they were much more, they were more oomph to them. 4 separate criminal indictments in such a short period of time in the lead up to an election were understandably, and in some ways correctly, seen as a political effort to keep Trump off the ballot. Absolutely. That's first. Second of all, many people saying at the time that they were put out there to kind of bury the information about Hunter, maybe some of the things going on in the Biden White House. Not only did the indictments cause Republicans to rally around the leader, it gave him the confidence to skip out of the primary debates, which actually ended up hurting DeSantis and Nikki Haley at the time. But it was not to be. Now Trump leads both by 50%, meaning DeSantis and Haley. And if there was ever a chance of an alternative pulling off a miracle upset, it was dashed by the Colorado Supreme Court's decision to try to remove the nearly presumptive GOP presidential nominee from the primary ballot. Trump is again, this is Isaac Shore. Trump is unfit for office, and his actions in the wake of his embarrassing loss to Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election are among the most disgraceful ever taken by a commander-in-chief. But they said because of the lack of charging him with high crimes and misdemeanor, convicted of high crimes and things like that, that they may actually put him in office for not having done that in the past. Again, I'm rushing through here because I'm already running late. This overstep, perhaps the biggest yet, is imprudent and arrogant enough to not only reinforce conservatives' priors, but to push persuadable voters who are already leaning toward backing the former president over the incumbent in a Trump's camp. And that's what we were talking about with the former Congressman Joe Semplinsky yesterday, that there may have been people that really do not like Trump. But boy, they don't like to see the powers that be decide who you get to vote for and who you don't get to vote for. And especially when you're talking, just to add insult to injury or put salt on the wound, you're talking about judges that were nominated, never received a vote from anyone in Colorado, getting to decide who is put on that ballot. And I would add that Trump never was charged with quote-unquote insurrection, or never was found guilty, quote-unquote insurrection. As a matter of fact, the opposite. Trump already leads Biden by 3 points in polls, and he doesn't need to perform nearly that well to win the election. If he is reelected in 2024, the role that the institutional GOP, as well as the voters, played cannot and will not be ignored. But so too will the collection of narcissists and buffoons whose eagerness to play a starring role in stopping Trump has backfired spectacularly. So that is coming from Isaac Shore. You can find that at the New York Post. I'd love to hear your take on it, but we do have to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on Big Fox. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Just received this voicemail. Hang on, Frank, because your Governor Hochul is going to be doing the same thing. Get ready for it. I believe that would be in reference to kicking Trump off the ballot here. Yes, we brought that up a while ago, and I think we mentioned it with Joe yesterday, where when you saw other states do it, New York wants to be the first at every bad decision. Well, they missed the boat, but they had a while ago started the process for this. And once Colorado made that decision, they're speeding up the process. We saw a lot more push for it from Democrats in Albany. So yes, that is a good point. There are calls, and I don't see much coming from it, for Biden to denounce Trump's removal from the ballot. Former White House press secretary Ari Fleischer said if Biden were smart, he denounced the Colorado Supreme Court ruling. He'd call it wrong and show confidence he can win without throwing Trump off the ballot. And really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what he wants. So I think it would be, that isn't a bad point. But he won't do that because he's too afraid of the progressive left and too weak to stand up to them. Republican Congresswoman Mary Miller said Democrats in Colorado are removing President Trump from the ballot because the Democrat Party opposes democracy, which is a system where voters get to select their elected leaders. If Biden and the media actually believed in democracy, they would denounce it immediately. I know I mentioned this the other day, but if you think about this, there's a long history of this. I mean, Democrats had set up a system where Bernie Sanders had absolutely no chance to beat Hillary Clinton. The fix was in. So they like the show, the pomp and circumstance of allowing people to vote, but at the end of the day, they don't really trust, specifically in that case, their own party. In this case, the American people. So I think that is worth noting. We've got to take our last break, wrap things up on this edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. A beautiful day here on Market Street in Corning. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I'm your host, Frank Acom. This is Frankly Speaking. And you're watching Big Fox, WYDC TV. Okay, we are out of time for today's edition, and I got a little bit of housekeeping. I want to thank Bobby Joe Burdick for being our guest. Armed Women of America, the Steuben County chapter. We appreciate her being on the program, and I thank you to everyone in the Armed Women of America for that beautiful Christmas tree that's over here. I know it's a little off camera. If you look at the intro, you can see it. And it made a couple of guest appearances during the telethon. So thank you again for that amazing Christmas tree. I also want to remind you that, you know what? I should also say, because I forgot it the first time, that their meetings, if you are interested, their meetings of Armed Women of America, Steuben County chapter, is the third Thursday of every month from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Painted Post Field and Stream, located at 320 Beartown Road in Painted Post. Now we're out of time. So on Monday's show, Christmas Day, we will have a Frankly Speaking. It's all going to be Christmas music from the telethon. I hope that you'll tune in. Thank you to everybody who weighed in this morning, all the comments, all the waves. We got 5 waves. That's pretty good this morning. Thank you, especially for maybe a vacation day. So we really appreciate that. Remember what it's all about, folks, as you celebrate. I hope that you have an amazing time with your loved ones, friends, family, that you're safe, that you have just a great Christmas 2023. We will be back with an all-new live edition of Frankly Speaking on Wednesday, where we'll start getting back into the rhythm of guests. I have a big guest coming up on Thursday. I can't give too much away, but I do want to say, just before it's completely set in stone, but if you remember recently I made the announcement that Senator Gillibrand was going to have competition, that there was a Republican that was going to run against her. Well, that gentleman may just be on the show on Thursday, so you have to tune in. Whew, that went too quick, if I'm being honest. That just went too quick. As always, even when we're off the air, you can. Oh, I forgot. I should have done this. Look at that. Get in the holiday spirit. I should have done that a little bit today, as this is our last live edition of Frankly Speaking before Christmas. I want to put that contact information up. Before we go, you can reach out to me. I know it's going to be a long weekend, but if anything pops up, anything you'd like me to mention, or any guests you'd like me to have on, we try to do our best to reach out to the people you want me to reach out to. Sometimes it doesn't go well. Maybe there's a reason you want that person on the show, and that's the reason they don't want to be on the show, or maybe they're just busy. But we try to do our best. So if you would like, at any time, with questions, comments, concerns, or criticisms, please reach out to me at that number. Leave a voicemail or a text message, and then email that if you would like as well. frank@wydctv.com. Okay, that does it for us. Let me take the contact information off. Have a great weekend, everyone. Have an amazing Merry Christmas, and we will be back Wednesday morning with Frankly Speaking. I hope you'll join us starting at 7, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We will see you then.